Sonic the Hedgehog was always struggling a bit with its identity after the Genesis era. As a franchise, it has probably the most games being unlike each other. Though in its history, there was one formula that was considered one of the few consistencies of enjoyable gameplay, besides the classic formula and the adventure gameplay. Obviously, I'm talking about the boost formula, being the main one in the home console releases from 2008 to 2011 or even up to 2017, if you consider Lost World to be a Wii U spin-off. But why was it that way and how did it fall? That's what I want to explain from a perspective of a guy who grew up only knowing Sonic for his boosting self for the longest time. My first ever console was given to me at my 6th birthday, when I got into primary school. I begged my mom for it after she brought an abandoned DS home that one of her dancing students left at her studio. Obviously, I wanted to try it out and immediately fell in love with Mario Kart DS, my first ever video game. Even though she hated video games, she couldn't bear my constant whining, and thus bought me a DS with Mario Kart and Sonic Rush. You can guess where this is going. I instantly fell in love with the Blue Hedgehog, and the love for that franchise persists up till today, where I would still leave the cinema with a wide grin after seeing the Sonic 2 movie. But what is most interesting for my case is that with only having the DS console from 27 and not having a home console till 28, is that I never came in touch with any Sonic games prior to Rush or Unleashed, which both were the first ones to have boost gameplay in handheld and console form. With no access to the internet, I grew up thinking that Sonic always played like Rush and Unleashed in the modern era. I had the classic collection on DS with the Mega Drive games, but even then I knew that these games must have been much older than Rush and the others. Thus, I never even thought how different Sonic could play, and it influences me even today. Sure, at the time I had access to the internet, I listened to music of Adventure up to 06 and watched some gameplay, but everything up to Unleashed always seemed completely different and weird to me. After playing every major Sonic game over the years, I still consider the boost gameplay the most polished and most fun form, and I could live with Sonic games of that formula only, if it was done as well as it was until Forces happened. And others must have felt the same way, because besides the adventure games having 3 or 4 games of similar gameplay, whether you're counting 06 or not, the boost has gotten the most titles with a total of 6, from 25 to 17, and Colors and Generations being 2 of the best regarded games of the Blue Blur, both among fans and critics. Why do many fans still consider the boost formula as a bad subgenre of Sonic? It comes mostly down to what Sonic in the gaming industry was up to Rush or Unleashed, a platformer. While technically the boost games are still classified as that, in its core there are something completely different. Former Sonic games highlighted the platforming aspect, connected with aspects of high speed and multiple routes. The boost formula, on the other hand, highlights the speed aspect and only inserts platforming on distinct occasions. And when they are inserted, they often feel clumsy and unfitting. The reason for that is simply that the formula and the handling of Sonic is just not suited for precise platforming movement. It's the complete opposite. Sonic's movement is supposed to be precisely handled, but in relation to rushing through obstacles of the high-speed levels, not the platforms. As a player, you get the same reward by mastering the levels and Sonic's movement in S rank. But the skills needed to get there are much different to games like SA2. Adventure formula games have a much higher focus on memorization, mastering of Sonic's abilities and finding the optimal route through a zone. The boost games are often much more akin to autorunner games like Temple Run, in its required skill, the reaction time. While you can still pause Sonic's movement unlike in autorunner's, it's highly advised to never stop, finishing the levels as seamless as possible. The whole boost that the formula gets its name from intensifies that. Besides Unleash, the boost doesn't necessarily make Sonic's movement a lot faster. Most of the time, Sonic is really fast when he's just moving through the environments, but enemies that can hit Sonic and stop his movement are spread throughout most levels, like in every other Sonic game. Because the 3D environment and high-speed gameplay does conflict with Sonic's former method of dealing with opponents in 3-dimensional levels, the homing attack, because it brings Sonic's speed to a halt, there needed to be a different way to destroy Eggman's robots. Thus, the boost as a defending, instant killing technique was born. It rewards the player by creating more situations of required quick reaction time. Feels really powerful and fast because of its visual and sound design. Critical views often call this formula boost to win, but that is often unfounded, at least until Forces happened. Usage of the boost requires skill when facing cliffs, curves, spikes or certain enemies, but still, Sonic teams seem to take their critics to heart. After Unleashed only having a minimum of slow platforming, Colors focused on that part of the gameplay with speedy sections being more rare, as I could have wished. While Colors was rated pretty high, in my and many other fans' opinion, it was here where the cracks of the boost formula had shown. Sonic's movement is not very precise at a low pace, because the engine is supposed to create high speed. Thus platforming feels forced when being slow, making Colors a great example of when the boost formula works and when not. When the formula works would be first in high speed reactionary portions or in cinematic ones that put focus on the visual style and look of Sonic rushing through a stunning environment, like the opening section of Starlight Carnival Act 1. Unlike the home console version of Colors, the DS port being made by the same team behind Rush feels more fast-paced and refined. The Wisps here are much less of another break, but instead often take the concept of speed and add the power-up gimmick to it. In general, this speedy platforming is handled way more smoothly in the DS game. Sonic Generations has some platforming sections as well, but they are actually only a small portion and feel much more connected to the speedy aspects and not necessarily like a break. Sonic Forces, on the other hand, was a disaster in every aspect. While formerly there were people calling games like Generations Boost to win, Forces truly intensifies that. Most levels are straight linear lines when in 3D, without many platforming aspects. Often you can't even go to the left or right efficiently. The boost makes you rush through all obstacles, and with the drifting ability taken away, Sonic's movement in curves is not really handleable. The 2D segments have some platforming, which feel awful as well, since Sonic falls like a rock after jumping. Levels are mostly between 1 and 2 minutes long, and don't offer a real challenge or a perspective to master the levels. In the modern Sonic stages, Forces embodies every critic of the boost formula ever mentioned. That is essentially really sad. Growing up with the boost formula, I love the high-speed reactionary gameplay of modern Sonic mainline games since Unleashed. But somehow Sonic teams increasingly fail to understand what makes this gameplay style so enjoyable. I was massively hyped for Forces, because its promise was a Generations 2 with only new stages in a post-apocalyptic setting. The pre-release soundtrack got me even more hyped. But in the end, the misunderstood build of the boost gameplay in Forces, as well as the story, disappointed me on a whole other level. When being understood in its structure, the boost formula can be a lot of fun for people who love speed, reactionary gameplay, and learning to master levels. If misunderstood, it becomes a boring straight-line disaster. Since Sonic Team seems to not get the gameplay style anymore, I am kind of happy that they changed the direction of the gameplay for now. Hopefully Frontiers manages to achieve a satisfying gameplay for what it wants to be. Sadly, I expect the boost formula to not return in the near future. Sega has the tendency to never try out a solid concept in Sonic gameplay once its realization as a full game failed. It can be seen with the adventure formula never returning after 06, for example. But many fan games still give hope, and maybe Sonic Team will find a new way to express Sonic in gameplay form that is enjoyed by old fans and new alike. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave your comments down below and do the usual YouTube stuff like subscribing, sharing and liking the video. I would love to see what you think on the topic. And if you keep going watching videos on this channel, you can expect other video essays on various gaming topics, anime or real life shows and other geeky stuff, maybe even music or literature. Thank you for listening and watching. Sayonara.